6:32 a.m. Just acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the traditional territories of 10 Chalmouth Nations, most of which is unceded. And a note that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube on the Regional District website. If anyone out there in the ether has questions, you can email them to the ECRD at responses@ecrd.bc.ca, and we'll answer those and take any comments at the end of the meeting. Introductions is number one, and just remember, everybody, we might all know each other, but there are other people perhaps watching who don't. So quick introductions around the table, and let's just start with Kristen, and then you can pass it along to somebody else.
Great. Kristen Cardani here, Administrative Assistant for the ACRD, and Amy can go next.
Aw, thanks. Hi, I'm Amy Needham. I'm the Sustainability Planner for the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District, and I generally deal in all things biological for the Regional District, everything from fish to plants and bugs and everything in between, environment, water, you name it. I think I'll pass it on to Anne because she is next in queue.
Okay, my name is Anne Settle. I'm the administrator for the Alberni District Fall Fair, and I will pass it to Helen.
I am Helen Zanetti. I'm the Pacific Rim School District trustee representative.
You have to pass it on, Helen. We don't know who goes next.
Sorry. Let's go to Anna Lewis.
Hello, I'm Anna Lewis. I'm the manager of the Alberni Valley Food Security Society and a small producer in the valley. And I will, people are jumping off and popping on. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Pat Deacon.
Good morning, everybody. Pat Deacon, City of Port Alberni Economic Development. And I'm passing it along to Heather.
All right, thanks, Pat. I'm Heather Shobe, currently the chair of this Agricultural Development Committee, small farmer with Eden Tree Farm, and I've worked on contract for the regional district to support agriculture as well. And Lisa.
Morning, everybody. Lisa Aylard, representing the Alberni Farmers Institute and Stonehaven, our farm, Stonehaven Farm. Thanks.
Should I pass it on? I'm passing on to Tom.
Good morning, everyone. Tom O'Dell, regional agrologist with the BC Ministry of Agriculture and Food, zooming in from the traditional territory of the Comox First Nation in Courtenay, and I'm also a small-scale producer of plants in a wholesale nursery, but that's not my role today. Has anyone not gone? I've lost track.
Kirsten from SD70.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Nesbitt, and I'm the Healthy Schools Manager for School District 70, and I just started at the end of May, so that's probably why you don't recognize me. And I'll pass it on to Christopher.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully everyone had a great Thanksgiving weekend. Christopher Duffin here, part of the BC Center for Agritech Innovation. My role is Associate Director of Agritech Partnerships and Growth, and really looking forward to spending some time with you this morning and sharing a bit more about BC CHI at a high level as well. So, and I guess back to the moderator.
All right, thanks, Chris. And I'll say hi to Kirsten because we've never met, and it's great to have you here. Also, a note here, we do not have a quorum today, so this meeting will be held for information purposes only. There will not be any motions to made unless we get 2 more committee members on the call. And I think that's a topic for discussion for later too. So onward, are there any additions to the agenda? Yes. Oh, but Amy has it. You got it, Amy. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add something on, if you can add information on winter cutworm to the information items, and I'm going to be giving an update in my report as well, but I wanted to add that on as a late agenda item, so we have some information on that insect in our information items.
Right, thank you. Are there any other additions? Can we get a motion that the agenda is approved with the addition of the winter cutting rooms? Thank you,
Can we-
Helen.
Can we make a motion though? We don't have
Oh,
quorum.
Okay, we will not make motions. We're just
Oh.
going to go ahead with
We're
our
just gonna go ahead. For information.
amended. Yes, there we go. Information only. Are there any declarations of a conflict of interest today? Okay, none seen. And the past minutes you received, the minutes from September 17th. Are there any comments on those minutes? And I will not ask if we approve the minutes, but I will go in and sign them, I think, as per process later on. We'll talk about that. And so our first real point of business here is a presentation from Christopher Duffin, Associate Director for Agritech Partnerships and Growth at BC Centre for Agritech Innovation. And thank you for coming, Christopher. I believe this was requested from the committee a few months back, so it's great to see you here. And go ahead.
Thank you so much. I am also fighting through a bit of a cough, thanks to my little guy as well, who passed that on recently. So I'm going to do my best to fight through that as well. So if I go on mute, that's what's happening behind the scenes as well. But I did want to start by thanking the group for the invitation to speak. That's great. Really looking forward to the conversation today as well. I'm going to be trying to be as concise as possible. But before I begin, I did want to acknowledge that today I am speaking from the lands of the Katzie, Kwantlen, Matsqui, and Samiamu First Nations as well. So I will now share my screen. All right, so before I begin, wanted to share a high-level overview of Simon Fraser University, which BC CHI is an initiative of. So in terms of SFU, we have lots obviously going on in terms of an engaged university across the Lower Mainland especially, but in BC as well, but also nationally and globally as well. Some key areas of focus for us these days is around clean tech, agritech, of course, AI, computing as well. So there's lots of work going on these days around those specific areas. We pride ourselves to be leaders around innovation and climate, especially, and going forward, ag tech is definitely a key area for us on the horizon as well. So that propels us to that conversation around BC CHI. So back in 2019, the province led a food security report, as most of us probably know. A bunch of recommendations in that report, a couple that are near and dear to us at BC CHI, one being that ag tech could be a solution around food security or insecurity. Maybe not the solution, but a solution, obviously. The other key area in that report was a center concept was also highlighted to really help facilitate the ecosystem development around ag tech for the province as well. So at that stage, SFU pitched government, and lo and behold, we secured $16.5 million from the province, BC province, that is, through JEDI, and also through Pacifican, the federal government as well. And that really stems into, obviously, the challenges that exist here in the province. Each region of the province is quite unique, obviously. So in the Okanagan, you might see more tree fruits, vineyards, of course, island, more aquaculture, obviously. Lower Mainland, a bit more focused on greenhouses as well. But each of these areas and sectors have their challenges, some around, obviously, climate related, but also labor is another one as well. And at this stage, too, looking at where BC CHI could help and support in that area as well, right? To really propel BC to be a leader in the emerging ag tech sector as well. And it is a huge sector for the province as well. And that leads into BC CHI and our key areas of focus, which is 3 pillars. One around projects. So we work with SMEs to co-create and develop projects with a focus on commercialization and job creation. So as much as we're based at SFU, we are basically out of the R&D side of the house and more further along on the technology readiness and looking at those technologies on that cusp of commercialization at a high level anyways. And in that process, create a lot of jobs as well. Also on our pillar is around workforce capacity building, and that's skills development. So think of it as training, upskilling for obviously undergrad, graduate students, but also those industry folks too that are looking to upskill around ag tech innovation as well. And lastly, and feeding into those first 2 points, really building the ag tech ecosystem here in BC, and again, to propel BC to be a leader in the ag tech space as well. And you'll see there in terms of our impact, our desired impact over the 5 years of funding that we have secured, those are some pretty significant KPIs, and that is what we're striving for as well. And we are making some headway on those KPIs right now, being year 3 of being in existence as well. And this is just a snapshot of some of the agritech innovation or technologies that we're looking at as well. Obviously, you think of vertical farming, but it could also be in the genomics side, all the way to aquaculture, of course, is in our wheelhouse as well. And really looking forward to continuing conversations, especially in Port Alberni, to see where we might be able to do some projects and maybe some workforce capacity building as well. And our model, as I mentioned, is a co-creation model. So we really center around the SME and really bringing in the parties to really help that SME from start to finish, whether it's projects, but it's also on the training upskilling side. We really try to bring in our network and the leadership, the thought leadership especially, that exists to really support the SME altogether as well in a really co-created model. So the SME is very involved and centered around our model. This just gives you a snapshot of our criteria around projects. So as I mentioned, we're a bit further along on that technology readiness side. So looking at our projects, that gives you a sense of the budget of scale from 50K to 500. In our model, the lead applicant also has to put some skin in the game through a cash contribution, which we match. And that we also look for 2 to 5 partners on projects as well. Often includes academic institutions, but it also could include other collaborators in the community as well. And the other area for us as well is looking at, of course, that dollar for dollar match, but looking at, I see us often in that sweet spot of being in that facilitation role, whether it's working with that technology solution that exists and validating it on farm or greenhouse, or sometimes it's working with the farmer directly to understand their challenges and trying to find that solution as well. So I often see that in our conversations around projects. This gives you a bit of a graphic of how our model works. So as I mentioned, there is a cash contribution piece as well. But BC CHI really comes in terms of not just the cash piece, but we also have a strong network in the ecosystem as well. But we also have access to other thought leaders as well to really bring them into the fold and finding the right people at the right time to support that SME in their push towards commercialization. The other key area, as I mentioned, was around workforce capacity building and workforce development. And this could be kind of an easy one, maybe for opportunities in the Port Alberni area. And that's really around, that capacity building and maybe looking at opportunities to upskill the community as well. So there could be some interesting conversations here, especially in the group that's here today, around are there ways that we could do a 1-day or 2-day workshop or maybe a micro credential around a specific area of interest to support that community development as well. This also gives you a snapshot of what we're looking at potentially around workforce capacity building as well. One being provincial ag tech events. And we are trying to do that across the province because we do have a provincial mandate. We, as much as we're based at SFU, we get a lot of attention obviously in the Lower Mainland, but we're really trying to get out as much as we can across the province as well. So there could be some avenues to co-create and develop events, maybe in the Port Alberni area. So that's something we can discuss as well. The other area, as I mentioned, is around those workshops as well. So maybe there's some specific members of the community that might be interested in a co-creation model around partnerships in the training upskilling side as well. We're also looking at some co-op opportunities to maybe offset costs related to co-op. And eventually, the goal, I think, would be more of a training hub for us as well, more of like a Netflix model where people can access content, especially around workforce capacity building as well. So these are kind of key areas that we're looking at in terms of exploration around training upskilling. In terms of BC Chi, why BC Chi? As I mentioned, obviously there's the cash piece, which interests folks as well, but it's more than that too. I think it's really the network that we have access to, and also the thought leadership that we have on our team. We have an innovation team that comprises agronomists, engineers as well. And we can access, again, other post-secondaries and thought leadership across the province, and even nationally and globally as well. So again, it doesn't necessarily have to be an SFU project. We work with all the post-secondaries here in the province as well. And we'd love to do more in, especially North Island as well, like VIU as well, as a conversation we've been having as well. The other piece is around marketability. Obviously, our funders being government, there's a lot of attention and in response to the projects as well. So there could be some interesting marketing around those companies that want to explore some collaborations as well. And really about building impact in the sector in terms of capacity, but also that innovation piece as well, as why BC Chi is instrumental in this as well, and really bringing in, as I mentioned, the right people at the right time to support industry from start to finish as well. So we're really instrumental in that piece as well, and we don't let SMEs go without support as well. I want to give you a snapshot of a couple projects at a high level anyways. One example would be EcoFarm, which is based in Abbotsford here in the Lower Mainland. They wanted to try growing rice in the valley, which is a brand new crop as well. And there were some challenges around weed management. So we worked with the University of the Fraser Valley and with Saki, a collaborator that was based at Granville Island as well. And so we really helped facilitate that project as well. And it was a really interesting one as well. So it's a new product developed and supporting well, through UFE, some leadership around weed management as well. So this is just a snapshot of the funds that we contributed, but also the number of HKP trained in that process as well. Another example, working with KPU and more around aeroponic technology. And this just gives you a snapshot of the work that we've done there in terms of contribution, but also number of HKP jobs created as well. So that is a very high level of BC Chi, but would love to continue the conversation. I know I've met with Pat and Amy on numerous occasions now. I hope that continues, of course. But for now, I just want to give a very high level overview of BC Chi and where the direction of BC Chi is going. It is an instrumental year for us as well, being our stage gate year with our government funders. So we're really got our heads down, working hard around those KPIs and the impact that we can have in BC, but would love to continue engagement with Port Alberni and the collaborators that are on this call as well. So I'll leave it there, but I'll do my best to answer questions if we have time for questions. If not, reach out to me. Happy to have a conversation anytime. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christopher. And yes, I think it's good to take some time for questions. So does anyone have any questions? Amy?
I saw the post that BC Chi put up about the traveling roadshow kind of thing kicking off in Victoria for the island. And I was just wondering if any events have been confirmed up island, like near us.
Yes. So what we started in Victoria for this provincial roadshow. So we're trying to get out, as I mentioned, across the province. And we're also trying to leverage existing events as well to make it timely and worthwhile and managing budgets, of course. So we timed that Victoria stop with VIEA, the summit in North Island. So we will be having a team there as well. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we can't do something specific to more opportunities there as well. But that's something, yeah, if that's an opportunity to chat about further. But for now, it looks like VIEA is probably our most immediate stop in North Island. But we're still, knocking on doors around North Island College, VIU as well, to see if we can find some. I think a big part is finding those anchor stakeholders, whether it's venue, but also those, if there's thought leaders or academics that we could bring in to help kind of build out some, the big focus for us, obviously, this year is around workforce capacity building. So if there's some avenues there to explore, we're all ears anyways at a high level, but.
Yeah, the one that comes to mind, I don't know, Heather, if you're thinking of Jenny Horn as well. She's kind of the agriculture micro-credential person that I know of. I think she's affiliated with VIU, I believe.
Yeah, VIU again. I'm being recorded here, so I gotta be. I know they're having some budget challenges, from my understanding as well. But Jenny and Deb Hellbach is another contact that we've had. Who's I think Deb's kind of moved on into a different scope, from my understanding as well. But yeah, definitely VIU and North Island College are the two key stakeholders that we are looking at in terms of collaborations.
Okay. I just had one other question if no one else's hand is up. You mentioned the possibility for area in this area, like having workshops or micro-credentials, something like that. Do you have like a list of things to shop from that you
So
offer?
yeah, I think it depends on the community, and that's what the provincial roadshow has been kind of interesting for us as well. So we're trying not to go into a community and say, this is what you want to hear from us. We're really trying to work in lockstep in that co-creation model in terms of where are those gaps, who can we bring in to help support those gaps as well. So that's kind of where we're, again, finding those key stakeholders to really help facilitate our understanding of what's happening in the region or where the gaps exist and where BC CHI can support is kind of how we're doing it from that approach as well. So we're not swooping in and talking about AI or something that won't, well, it might just land flat, right, with the community. We really want the community's input and that development piece as well.
I'll just comment. That was a question I had as well. And I appreciate not coming in with like, here's what we're going to do. And at the same time, I think it can be helpful to see like what you've done elsewhere, because that will seed some ideas and then we can build off of that. Otherwise, it's a whole other like, okay, we got to think about this and come up with something completely from scratch. So
yeah, it's going to be
interesting. Can be helpful.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how our initial stops in the roadshow go. So we have one obviously in Victoria next week. We have one in Kamloops that we're looking at in collaboration with TRU and the Innovation Center there. And again, those approaches, I mean, it takes a bit longer in terms of getting things done because you're in that facilitation and kind of understanding and back and forth. But with that said, yeah, it'd be great to do something in the region that's impactful and people walk away with a better learning and understanding, and they can go back to their work and actually apply what they learn is kind of what we're looking at, right?
All right, thanks. And Pat, go ahead.
Oh, Pat, nice to see you.
Yeah, you too, Christopher. Thanks for the presentation. I was at an event on Friday with Indigenous Works Luminary and the Pacific Seaweed Industry Association. And I wonder if you have contacts with them, you've done anything with them, where we might go. I ask because, excuse me, I'm probably an outlier with the group in that I suspect that most of the people on in the Ag Development Committee are more focused on terrestrial farming, but our involvement with the food hub and the communities on the inlet are such that we're, I think, swinging more to a focus around seaweed.
Yeah, so Mark Smith is always on my speed dial. So I often engage with Mark at a high level, and he's someone that's easy to, well, talk to, but also has some really good ideas on bringing people together to solve problems as well. So often talk to Mark. He's actually put us in contact with some leading researchers at UVic on some opportunities there. So aquaculture, as I mentioned, is still a key area for us as well, especially North Island. So there could be some engagement outside of our normal vertical farming piece as well. And we would love to see more projects come through that represent the province, right? So feel free to make introductions. Happy to talk to anyone. And again, First Nation community building is definitely an area of focus for us as well, and an area that we want to have impact in as well. So, so all of that, yes, yes, yes. Feel free to make introductions where you can, and happy to have further conversations with those community members as well. So.
All right, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, I have one. And this is something that it's a technology that I've heard kind of requested or needed by some local farms, and that's something like a small scale blueberry harvester, like a mechanical harvester. And so I'm just curious, how would one go about working with you on that? And also just keeping in mind that, you know, notwithstanding the financial minimum of 25,000, which can be challenging. I guess the question with that is that would they get to keep the prototype if that actually led to something? So then their, you know, investment went somewhere. But the other question is that they don't necessarily have the capacity to lead and initiate like a project like that. So how much can Kai step in and like, oh, that's a great idea, let's take that on?
Yes, so couple things on that point. So, and the whole point for BC Kai is with especially our innovation team, and we have project management team as well to support the project from that ideation all the way through to that project management piece. And we take all that heavy lifting off the SME. So there's that piece, right? The other piece that you mentioned is sometimes it depends on this if this technology, and I'm not the resident expert on our team around the innovation side per se. But I guess the question will be, does it fit in our TRL of 5 to 9, or is it new technology? And that might be a different conversation within engaging universities. And that might be a different pot of funding outside of BC Kai funding. If it is an early stage technology, that I don't know if this technology already exists or not. But again, happy to have a conversation with those folks. Because maybe, I mean, there's that piece where we often look for farmers or greenhouses to even validate technology on as well. So they might not have to be a lead applicant on a project, but they could definitely be a collaborator on the project as well, right? So there's different angles, and every conversation's a bit different, but happy to try to flush that out a bit more as well. So is that helpful?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I can share some information with them and have them look into what might be.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess understanding exactly what is technology in terms of what you support, that level 5 to 9, what is that exactly?
Yeah, and it's really like you have a prototype, you're really moving towards that, getting it to market, right? Is kind of the phase that we're in. But sometimes conversations with the technology providers, they might be too early for us, but then it might be shifting gears to, is it more research and development? And maybe there's some funding that might exist with a collaboration with a faculty member, or maybe it's working with a partner like Innovate BC, or maybe Foresight Canada as another example. So there's different, and this is where the ecosystem exists and where we baton pass accordingly as well. So yeah, without having all the details, happy to have another conversation. But for us, we're just kind of take a really good understanding of the project potential and do a bit of a deeper dive with those specific partners if there's interest as well. But let us know, and then happy to circle back with those people as well.
Yeah, great. Thanks. It is helpful definitely to have kind of centers of people that are able to, the networks are helpful. So appreciate that. Are there any other questions for Christopher?
No questions, but I did post the URL for the technology readiness levels in the chat.
Thank you, Pat.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Pat. And thanks for coming, Christopher. I know you've been in touch with Amy and Pat, so hopefully those continues, and maybe we'll see you again.
Yes, and our team will be at Vaea. I won't be, but my team will be there. So if you're at Vaea, make sure you stop in and see Rahul and Rachel. They'll be there represented our team. So you can dive a bit deeper into any specific questions that come out of this as well, or just reach out to me directly post-meeting as well. But just grateful for everyone's time this morning. And again, look forward to further collaborations in the region as well.
All right, thanks. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, have a
Thank
lovely
you.
day, everyone. We'll
You
see you
too.
soon. Bye now.
Just a note too, he did give permission for his slide deck to be included in our minutes. So the slides will be available, or they can be sent out to the committee afterwards, whichever. So.
All right, thanks, Amy. Next on the agenda is correspondence for information, and we have the Alberni Valley Food Security Society's autumn newsletter with some updates, recipes, upcoming events, and all kinds of things on there. And I guess after that is the cutworm discussions, information.
Those will go under, I think, reports for, oh no, it is an information item. Oh my goodness, I'm getting confused with my own agenda. Good Lord. So I just wanted to, I don't know if it's worth me sharing my screen, but I just wanted to let people know we've had some reports of cutworm outbreaks, and it's kind of a misnomer that's throwing people off. The winter cutworm, the moth stage is called the large yellow underwing, and it's a related species to armyworm. So it's behaving in a lot of the same ways that the armyworm behaves. There was an outbreak, Heather, correct me if I'm wrong at any point, and Lisa, there was an outbreak of true armyworm that happened back in 2017. And there was monitoring that occurred correct after that.
Yeah.
And what was found in the monitoring after that, like 2018 and subsequent years, were any found, or was
yes, there was like consistently some armyworm moths found, but no further like outbreaks at the scale of 2017.
When it happened in 2017, I'm just curious, what month was the outbreak? Was it October as well?
No, it was I think it was July 1st.
July, okay.
Or was it June?
It was early growing season. I know that. I'm not
It was
sure
the
exactly.
entire summer.
Yeah.
Oh, the pasture gone.
It was devastating island-wide, it's my understanding. To forage primarily.
Tom, then did other regional districts then carry on monitoring ongoing too?
We
and find
had
kind of the same thing?
I participated in some in 2022. We did not find any true armyworm that year.
No.
There was, I think, 3 regional districts for a number of years: Cowichan, Comox, and maybe Victoria. I can't remember off the top of my head. But we did monitoring right up until the last year was 2022, I think.
Yeah, it was 2022. I checked my invoices, so yeah. I know.
and in I know in Comox there were moths found as well. In the records, I don't know exact, like throughout the season. So there were the moths, but they never kind of established and had an outbreak at the same level. So what we were looking for in the monitoring was finding like, oh my gosh, there's 100 moths in this trap, and so that's something to be of note, where we were finding, 1 or 5 or 10, and then working with the Ministry of Agriculture's entomologists to like sort of report, and they were tracking and letting us know when there were potential for another disaster.
So Tom, maybe you can answer this, or Heather. The documentation I found online, the true armyworm doesn't overwinter generally on the island. Is that what was found kind of through the widespread? They're being blown in kind of consistently, but they're not overwintering and building in numbers. Is that the way that you found it?
I'm not sure. That would be a question for Tracy.
Yeah,
I've asked her.
Yeah.
That was basically the reporting at the end was like, don't worry, these don't overwinter.
Yeah. So a little bit of difference I found. I wanted to ask Tom if there is some information he can give on winter cutworms specifically on the island, because they do overwinter. So what can you tell us about things that are happening across the island or has happened in the past? Has there been outbreaks in the past? What can you say?
We just got, I'm pretty sure you're copied on this, an email from Tracy. And in summary,
Oh, she just
over the
emailed. That's
years,
hilarious.
reports have come in from Vancouver Island, mostly from Central and North. Presence of winter cutworm is not new. There's some information from other parts of North America, primarily Oregon. She's not aware of a threshold for treatment in terms of numbers of animals, and they're easily monitored with light traps. You don't really need a pheromone trap.
You're right, because they're
And,
highly light sensitive. The
yeah.
moths.
And she's happy to talk with you more.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm just wondering about what ends an outbreak of winter cutworm, or if they never reach the point where they're economically damaging, or they haven't yet reached the point where
Yeah,
they're
I don't
economically
have,
damaging.
I haven't heard that much about it, so I'd refer you to Tracy or to her
Yeah.
staff.
Yeah, there was the attachment will be the Oregon State University fact sheet on winter cutworm. It's a really good fact sheet because it includes a breakdown of the lookalike armyworms that can be confusing sometimes to tell the difference between all the species. So it gives the characteristics of all the different fall army, like the different lookalike cutworm or armyworm species, including the true armyworm, to help tell them apart. So, but I'm heading out to meet with Lisa after the meeting and we can take some samples. I'm going to try and rear out some moths to get some positive IDs on the moths. And this is really good because a lot of my background for the last kind of 15 years was integrated pest management and I miss it. Doing monitoring and testing and traps and all sorts of stuff. So this is
fun.
It's not fun in the sense that there's cutworms that are devastating, you know, but at the same time, I love the ability to learn. And this is part of my portfolio. So it's great that I'm here and I can help in any way that I can. And hopefully this will be the end of them and they'll peter out kind of next spring. But I do have a question into the province as well on if there's a pheromone. Oh, right, we're going to do light traps to try and monitor for them next spring to see if they're emerging as moths. We can collect and see if the outbreak can be expected to continue on. So, but look for the winter cutworm fact sheet and the information items. We'll add it in as a late edition. Lisa, do you have anything to add? I see you there. I don't know if you're there.
Yep.
There she is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, these things are devastating our fields, and we reseeded here a few years ago, and so they're killing off the grass quite drastically, actually. That's why we're a little concerned just what exactly they are. There have been some crawling up the kids' house, and I've asked them to, if they stay there and they start to cocoon, to leave them, and we'll try to monitor them there, and hopefully we can catch them. I haven't noticed a whole lot of moth, but it's at the other end of the farm that it's coming this way. And I'm grateful now that we've got a bunch of peacocks and geese, because they're certainly fattening themselves up out there. They're picking out on them. We've tried some soapy water mixed with a few things that seems to be killing them off around the house because they were crawling everywhere. We've never experienced this other than the armyworm problem. This is basically mimicking the same that we had back in 2017. So with the en masse, oh, sorry, my husband's cell phone. So yeah, so it'd be nice to get clarification on this particular species because it is being found throughout the valley in different areas, and it's going after other people's fields as well. Lamarck Road, Greg, Leslie Street, somebody's pool in town's getting filled up with these things. The lady on Eyre Street there by the church that you'll pick up. So she said she'd found this moth near where she'd found the caterpillar. So she's not sure if it's the same one, but we'll find out. And I found a moth up by Caitlin's house. So I've caught that one as well. Whether or not it's the same, I couldn't tell you. But there's lots out here for you to come and get some good samples in varying stages. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, the winter, I think the whole family, the armyworm, winter cutworm, they pupate over winter, and then they emerge the next spring. So if you're looking for moths, we'll probably be finding them next spring. But I'm going to swing by before I head out to your place and pick up that sample from Janet. Yeah.
So for the cutworm, what about the eggs? Because Caitlin had found on a blade of grass, there was eggs that they almost looked a little bit moldy, but they were on the back of grass blades.
There's egg pictures in the fact sheet if you want to take a look and see if it resembles what you saw.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 So.
Another point from me. So a couple of things. There's also the fall armyworm, which is the Spodoptera frugiparida. Anyways, you can look that up, or Tracy will know it. But that is not on that fact sheet as an alternate species. But that's
it's not been found here. That's Tracy. Tracy did confirm. She's like, the fall armyworm is not found on the island as of ever yet. So she confirmed the pictures that we sent her is the winter cutworm.
Okay.
Ones.
Anyway, it'll be good to get the samples in. And then the other thing, and hopefully we can get something from Tracy for this, but what I'm seeing online, because people are finding these all over and everyone is going like, how do I kill these? What should I spray them with? And honestly, there needs to be some education going out to the public about here's what to do, because people are going to be trying whatever and spraying whatever to get rid of this thing that is it or is it not even a problem in these residential areas. But there's definitely a need for some material to go out to the public about, hey, this is happening, and either panic or don't panic, and here's some options for what you can do.
Please don't panic.
Yeah, I agree. Don't panic, but people are.
I had asked the province, I'd asked Tracy about the potential for the province giving a news release on them, and she confirmed here in the email that they won't because it's not new. They've been found ongoing. They've never reached economic devastation status. So if the committee would like some direction towards staff to put out a news release that comes from the ACRD confirming that kind of thing, that can go to the board and the board gives direction. But we're not at quorum. So that would be something. Maybe Lisa, can you and I talk about that? Maybe something coming from the Farmers Institute requesting that?
Sure.
Can we talk about that when I come out and see you? And we can kind of brainstorm how to get out some stuff. The fact sheet is like, even if that winter cutworm fact sheet gets shared out, it's a good fact sheet. It goes through what they look like. It goes through how to control them. It goes through the monitoring of them, all that sort of stuff. So it's a good kind of overview, and then the internet's at anyone's disposal if they want to look at it. But integrated pest management always starts with positive identification. If you make the wrong identification, everything cascades from there, because you might not do the proper monitoring, you might not do the proper controls, all that sort of stuff. So Lisa, one thing I wanted to ask you before I move on, in 2018, after the true armyworm outbreak in 2017, how was the recovery on your fields? Did you have to reseed everything, or did they come from the roots again?
No, we had to reseed it, and we're getting bare spots out there again. So, and somebody had sent me a picture of, I think it's the Vancouver Island Farmers Facebook page or whatever. Somebody else had problems with it, and they were identifying it as a yellow striped armyworm or something like that. So, and then you start looking into these things, you realize that there's so many different things in the insect world. So yeah, but yeah, these things are going to town on poor Caitlin's garden and stuff like that. So they're pretty devastating out here.
Okay, so we're going to get an ID, and then we're not going to let, the government, oh, we can't do this, and this is normal, and all of that get in the way of getting information out to the public so that locally here people actually don't panic and all of that. So I look forward to seeing something, and it's great that people can work together to make sure that happens. Any other questions on the cutworm, new caterpillar-like bug that is everywhere?
So is there a fact sheet that's been circulated to the group, or is that coming?
It'll be in I put it as a addition to the agenda for information, so it'll be added in. But I can send it out to my email list. I probably will. I want to meet with Lisa first and take some samples and see them for myself and all that sort of stuff before sending it around to everyone and asking them to be on. Because like I said, positive identification is everything. So
Okay.
everything starts from there. But
Thank
it'll be added in. Tracy is the provincial entomologist that we've been talking to, and she positively identified it. But again, it's at arm's length from pictures, et cetera, et cetera. She did make the offer of sending some pheromone to monitor for true armyworm, because she said there was some in the picture that Lisa sent that might be true armyworm as well, that might have blown in because of those background numbers that get blown in. So I'm thinking one thing that will come out of this for sure is next spring, we'll be working with the Farmers Institute to set up traps and start monitoring for these moths emerging and see what is actually going on out there and what kind of numbers we have.
If you need traps, I have a supply here, Courtney.
Okay.
We have
to get to.
traps here.
Do you have light traps though, Tom? Okay.
No.
And actually another note, because I did look through the old armyworm monitoring logs, and we had trapped moths here on September 22nd and September 29th of whatever year it was, maybe 2020, I can't remember. So there definitely have been armyworm moths in the area in September. So that's great that that was is going to be looked at too.
For sure.
Which also, just to remember, isn't that when we finished monitoring too, was always the end of September?
Yeah.
So there wasn't any monitoring that was done beyond that point in time.
No, and it's the moths that come in first and then lay the eggs, and then the caterpillars grow. So
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was fun. And you'll see when we get to my presentation, you'll see some ramifications of these things, but that's down the line. So we had on the agenda a request for decision, which I don't think we can do, but I'm going to pass it to Amy to talk about meeting quorum and options for the ADC.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Chair. If everyone can take a look at your agenda, there is a request for decision report in there. If you just click on the part in your agenda, the front page, it'll drop you down in the agenda to the report and then the amended terms of reference. And basically this all stemmed from the fact that as a committee of the board, there's certain, there's a procedures bylaw and some legislation that the committee falls under, because committees of the board fall under some of the same rules that the actual board of directors for the ACRD falls under. So quorum is important, and it's something that can't be ignored. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have for a committee of the board. So some of the ways that other areas of like other topics or other groups have gotten around it is they move to something like a working group, which gives them a lot more flexibility because they're not under procedures bylaw requirements for live streaming, things like that. They can do field visits, they can meet out in the field, they can do tours and things like that. They can they just have more flexibility to meet the committee members or the members of the working group where they're at. But a committee of the board, because it falls under these rules, it's very prescribed how things have to run and things like that. It's just like board meetings. So there's some suggestions for how to help meet quorum, and I'm hoping everyone had a chance to read through the report, but I'm just going to do kind of a high level overview if that's okay. And so if there's 3 things that were suggested just to kind of make it easier, hopefully to make quorum. One of the things that was suggested refers to back to the fact that this is primarily for producers, this committee, and for producer organizations. So if we amend the terms of reference, or if the board allows the terms of reference to be amended to allow an alternate if a producer cannot attend, then that might make it easier for voting producer members to attend, because it's not tied to the one person. They can actually send an alternate in the place. That happens at board meetings. So if an EA director can't attend, they can send an alternate in their place, and that person presumes the voting rights of the EA director. So that's something that's simple that could allow for more producers potentially to and more voting members to attend. The other thing that some other committees do is when someone is there in a professional capacity, such as myself or Tom, even like a paid position as an advisory position that's there as part of their job, then they don't get to, they're not a voting member of the committee. They're called an ex officio. So they're there as part of their job. They're there to advise or help or provide information or report, like provide a report on what's going on. But the voting allowances are given to people like the producers on the board and other. Sorry, Tom. Tom just posted in the chat that he's gonna get going at 10:30. So the chat's about to light up. That way the volunteer organizations, not-for-profit organizations, they get to be the voting members, and it lowers our requirement for quorum. So if fewer of them attend, we'll still meet quorum. Does that make sense? There's a lot of blank screens. There's a lot of dark screens. I'm really depending on Heather and Helen to give me some indication that this is making sense.
It's Anne here.
I looked at this
That
and
makes
it makes
sense to me. So.
Okay. And the third thing is just something that I suggested because I really miss in-person networking type meetings where we all get to sit down together and we all get to actually speak face to face and have meetings face to face. It's a precious thing. A lot of it was lost during COVID. And I feel like if we want to have those opportunities back, then we have to put them at the forefront of what we want to do. But that'll be for the committee to decide. Don't let my bias for preferring, you know, a lunch meeting and like serve a lunch. We have budget for it. I have budget set aside for agricultural plan initiatives. And so we do have the budget set aside in a budget line. It's okay. This is important. The lot was lost during COVID, a lot of that face-to-face interaction. This is a very community-based committee. It's very broad in that it covers the whole valley, broad coverage of all different positions. We've got SD70 representatives, Island Health is invited, lots of different producers, things like that. And I feel like that face-to-face connection is important at any time, but particularly with committees as broad as this one. But the trade-off for that is that the capacity is being stretched across a lot of organizations. We're seeing it in the fact that people they don't have the capacity to come to monthly meetings. So the suggestion was made, a lot of committees have gone to quarterly meetings. You have 4 meetings a year, but you make sure that your terms of reference include the option for the chairperson to always call a meeting. If there's something happening and a meeting needs to be called, that right rests with the chairperson to call a meeting. If there's something that needs to be discussed or there's a hot button topic, always will have that ability that will not be taken away from the committee. But the quarterly meetings allow for more fulsome discussion on things. They can make sure that there's always a delegation because it's only 4 meetings a year. So there's always a delegation on something that the committee finds interesting or they want to find more about, and always with that face-to-face connection with the ability to also have hybrid in case someone can't travel to meet, or if they're sick at home or something like that and they want to remote in, the ACRD boardroom has that capacity. So that won't be lost either. So I open it up for discussion amongst committee members.
Who has any thoughts? There's the 2 different points about quorum and who is a member, and there's also the point about the different meeting structure and quarterly meetings. I think I saw Pat first.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. I think it's a good move. I think it's a good approach on every level. So that's all.
Thanks, Pat. Anyone else have any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I agree with trying to get producers involved, especially when things actually affect them and they have decision making or advice to give on certain things. Because if people don't have the skin in the game, sometimes they don't understand some of the things that come down the pipe, like UBCM and pit meadows and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I think we do need to have some kind of threshold where it is producer driven and advice given. So it's good to have all community input, but things that directly impact a farmer's ability to try to farm and grow food, it's becoming increasingly difficult. And I don't know, we're just not seeing the growth that I had kind of hoped over the years, because I've seen decline. I haven't really seen a whole lot of growth. There's a lot of interest and there's a lot of support wanting to have local products and you know, be local and all that kind of stuff, but there's still lots of, seems like, hurdles that we're still having to get over. Thanks.
Anna? I thought I saw you.
Yeah, no, I like the structure. I like the quarterly. I feel like compared to what they, and this is no criticism whatsoever, but compared to when Heather and I were like in that role, like the bazillion different things that we had going on, we really needed to have a monthly meeting. And anytime there was more than a 6-week gap, we sure felt it for subsequent meetings. But I think just the way that this group has evolved, that there is that space, a little bit of breathing space to be able to do the quarterly meetings. And I think it's a good thing. And it's a good thing that we don't need to have monthly meetings. It means there's more information getting distributed, or like there's just cross-pollination. I think that's occurring a lot more now through different organizations than just only at the ADC level, which I think is what had to happen for a number of years. So I think it's good for me, because I am a small producer and I am a nonprofit. So I'm just curious as to how does that work with the quorum. Like Heather's the chair, but she's also a producer. So for those of us that have multi-roles, yeah, that's
Two votes, 3 votes. I get 3.
No, because when I read the thing, and I might have to reread it, but it said only producers would have a vote. So
I tried to, if you go down to the terms of reference, so I'm going down to page 23 in the agenda, if everyone has their agenda up. So basically the proposed is that pulled out the City of Port Alberni staff position being paid to be there, Island Health dietitian, Tom's position, the regional agrologist, all the ones listed in 4.1 remain as voting members. But to answer your question, the choice would have to be made by that person, because you can only have one vote. In what capacity are you on the committee? Are you there to represent the Food Security Society primarily? That's your primary role in that minute. And then if you're like, no, in this meeting, I want to be there as a producer member, then is there someone else from the board of the Alberni Valley Food Security Society that can attend as your alternate? And you're like, I am abstaining from all discussion because of conflict of interest. I'm here as a producer member now. I've given up my voting my voting rights basically to that, my alternate, and I'm now as a producer member because I feel like I need in this meeting to be a producer member right now in this meeting. So if you're there as like the manager of the Food Security Society, then that's your role for the day. Not saying like in your reports, of course you can report on stuff going on in the farm, but for voting it becomes very like structured, right? Because it's all under that legislation and the procedures bylaw.
So in essence, though, would that mean that there was kind of 2 votes, because Anna would have a vote as a producer, but also have an alternate there voting as the Food Security Society?
What it means is that if the person from the board is there voting on behalf of the Food Security Society, if they vote contrary to what she thinks in the moment, she can't stand up and say, thump her fist on the table and say, I disagree with that, because she's given that voting in that capacity as a representative for the Food Security Society to that alternate. But she can vote on her own as her producer. She's in her
I
producer
have
role.
yet to see such exciting votes.
I know.
Wait.
2 votes for Anna.
It's, it's things happen I'm sure all of these stitching scenarios have happened in local governments across BC and the country, but I don't anticipate anything so exciting happening with the ADC, but we do have to take it into consideration.
Yeah, no, I did read it and I thought it looked good and it made sense. So
any other comments on this or perspectives? Helen?
I wanted to just, I'm always reading all these documents. 7.2, where it talks about a majority of voting committee members or alternates present, shall represent a quorum. This is a advisory body to the board of directors at the ACRD. So I don't know if this is, my point is going to be very important, but do you want to have a minimum so that you do have representation from at least 6 producers before you pass on recommendations to the board? Or is it okay to have, like, if you only had 3 producers here or 3 voting members? That was my concern, but I don't know if it's important.
Oh, sorry, that's confusing sometimes. So the the outline in 4.1 that outlines like the broad kind of categories of people that could be voting members, that's not the number of people. The board appoints their committees for the year every year in January. It's usually the second board meeting every January. And I check in with my committee in December. So usually my committees, my working groups, I check in with them. How are things going? Would you like your name to stand? And then like cycle through. So you're different because you're appointed through your side of things, but generally I ask people if they want to be a committee member, and if they let their name stand. If you look back at the board agenda minutes and agendas for the second meeting in January, you'll see all of the committees of the board listed there with names. So that's the quorum, that's the list that we're going back to for quorum. So what'll happen is that if these terms of reference go to the board and if the board adopts them, then what'll happen is the list will be different now going in the second meeting of January. It'll be the not-for-profit representatives, it'll be the producer representatives. And if I'm making my phone calls in December and I'm getting back from producers that are already on the committee, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, I can't. Then I start canvassing through things like the Farmers Institute. I say, look, the Agricultural Development Committee is looking for producer members. Are you interested in, here's kind of what the committee covers. Are you interested in being a member of the committee? Contact me. And then their name will come up and it'll be basically a 1-year stint that they'll be on the committee. And then that number of names will be what we go to when we're looking for quorum. There has to be a majority of those people. And generally we do try and make committees odd numbered because it's difficult to get a majority. If it's even versus even, you need a majority. So it bumps it up and you need more people. But if it's an odd number, then it's easy to see when you have a majority of people, more than 50% from the committee that are attending.
So I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. So I'm just being critical thinking, like of having representation. So you have a list of 14 people, let's say, that you were talking about. 7 have to attend these meetings still. Like, isn't the issue quorum? So
yeah,
the people that attend, the voting members that attend, it's the majority of them, whether it's 3 or 8, will make the decisions.
Yeah. What's happening is because this is such a broad committee, if you look at the categories of members that are there, we have certain people that it's important that they be included, such as the Doc Plus. The Doc Plus and the Port Authority, they do good work. They're important to include, but they will never be able to attend because literally the structure of their organization means they have a meeting always at this time. It just is what it is. And that's what I mean about the capacity sort of side of things. And so that's one that's supposed to be towards quorum that will never be here. And automatically it's more difficult to get quorum. And it's just taking into account that there's things like that happen. If we make the meetings less often, more of an event. So it's like more of a networking event. It's more of an event. And if I know that that's coming down the pipe, when I talk to people, especially producers in the fall, like in December, and I mentioned to them, it's 4 meetings a year, really important that you come out. We're really looking for a commitment that if you're going to be part of this committee, they do important work. We really want to be able to advance the work, and that requires quorum, and you're going to be a voting member. Then I kind of make it so that it's like, if you're going to be on the committee, if you're going to let your name stand, and then the other thing I wanted to bring out to the committee was I looked through the calendar for the ACRD because there are a lot of committees, and I did kind of propose a preliminary suggestion only for the meeting months for the quarterly. If you decide to go that way, I try to base it on all the committee meetings that are already happening and the times when. So did I do a good job, or I don't know, because you can let me know. The July one is, we have to have one in the summer, and I figure July is better than August. I don't know. So if the committee decides to go that way, there are February, April, July, and November were the preliminary suggestions for months to have the quarterly meetings in, because it tends to mesh with the other committees that are having things in person in the boardroom, of which we only have one boardroom. But did I answer your question, Helen?
I think so. I think you've got it. You understand it in your head. I don't totally get it, but you do. So that's what's important. And you understand what I'm concerned about is about making sure that the recommendations that this board makes are not just 3 people. And that was just my concern.
Yeah.
So I know one of the challenges here today is that we do not have quorum. So we can't actually make a motion or a decision about sending these terms of references to the board, I believe. So I'm not sure where to go, Amy, but maybe we just put it off to the next meeting and hopefully people will come to the next meeting. We'll have quorum.
It's the business of the committee. Like, the committee makes recommendations to the board, but the board is the final decision maker. So if it is okay, or generally understood that it's okay for me to bring the terms of reference to the board, then I can go ahead and do that. If someone is in massive disagreement with what's been proposed here and you demand that the ADC has to pass this or not pass it because you're planning and voting against this, then I would recommend waiting until we have quorum so that discussion can be had. And if someone wants to vote, try and vote it down, then we can do that as well. If there's no general, because sometimes things do, there's been like grant applications. If it's a grant application that has to go because the grant window is so small, we don't even have time to call a meeting, which has happened before, and I have to send it to the board. Sometimes agricultural related things do arrive on the board agenda without having it go to the ADC first, just because of timelines and things like that. So there is the ability to send this on to the board to amend the terms of reference. I really was hoping for quorum today, though, so that we could actually send a motion along with it. So it's really up to the committee.
I feel like, just honestly, not to be finicky about regulations and all of that, but like, if we're talking about decisions about having quorum, but you're saying we can send something to the board without having quorum, then I just feel a little bit confused about, like, well, when do we do that and when don't we do that? So, because actually changing the terms of reference, which are the guidelines for the entire committee, seem to me like something that the committee should actually agree on. And if we don't have a quorum, which is what the whole problem is, then I'm not sure why we would want to just like, oh, well, that's okay, we don't have to worry about that in this instance,
absolutely.
though. So I'm a little uncomfortable with it myself, but
well, the next meeting,
I'm the one who really doesn't like to get bogged down in the bureaucracy, and so I'm just not really sure what to say.
Can I
Helen?
I totally agree with you, Heather, because this is your principle. So I do think we need quorum to pass this on. But can we not get electronic quorum? Can you like put out an email? I don't know, because is that in your? I thought I read. I don't know. Electronic voting, is that an option in the policy, whatever you call that thing? Or
I've never done electronic quorum before, but like I said, the chairperson can call meeting of the ADC anytime they want to. So if there is a subsequent meeting where it's like super important that everyone attend, and you want to call it over Zoom and just say, everyone attend, please, we have to make quorum because we have something of importance to discuss that has to have a motion passed or defeated on it, then we can always do that. Or I had it in my mind too, Heather, that Ms. Chair, that the next meeting is slated to be in person for November at the ACRD boardroom. So maybe we can then, the committee members can talk amongst themselves and really get like a lot of people interested in coming. I'm hoping that in person is more interesting to people coming. Planning on having lunch served to the committee as kind of a wrap up harvest celebration sort of thing. So if you just want to stand and then actually discuss and maybe make a decision at the November meeting, that might work better. Who knows?
My question with that is, like, is there enough time before the whole new lists go out? Like, if we do it at the November meeting, you can take it to the board and we can still change it before the end of the term, right? So I think that's a better idea.
It works out okay, because the other thing that's coming up, I'm just jumping ahead. I'm sorry. The other thing that's coming up in my report is that I'm slated for agricultural liaison in the Emergency Operations Center training on the 19th, which is the next set ADC meeting date. And so I was going to put it before the committee to move the date up to the 12th. And if that happens, then we can have our meeting. I'm just looking at the calendar. That's why I'm looking off my screen. If we have the ADC meeting on the 12th in person and the motion wants to go forward to the board, then the board will look at it on the 27th, the terms of reference, the proposed terms of reference, and that if they pass it and they give me direction, then I still got December to phone everyone and talk with them and do all that. So the timelines still work out.
Great. Lisa, did you have something to add?
Yeah, actually, that would be great if we had the meeting earlier because I'll be out of the country on the 18th. And what about like was acknowledged about electronic voting or a proxy or something like that? Maybe a proxy vote if there was something that needed to be decided upon, if that could be sent to the chair ahead of the meeting or something like that as well, if that would help get some things pushed through, because we do that for our strata as well. If there's something they're going to vote on, a proxy is sent out, it's sent to a certain person before a certain time, and then it's dealt with that way.
That I can look into, the thing you're describing, but you also mentioned an alternate. Are you talking about like the ability to have an alternate attend and then vote on behalf of someone as well? That
You
helpful?
could possibly do that as well. Yeah.
Okay, but the whole electronic and then by proxy, like through email and stuff like that, can I check into that on my end with the administration, because they know the procedures bylaw like inside and out? There's probably nothing that's happened in committee that they haven't seen somewhere.
That would be helpful, I think,
Okay.
for the committee and for me as the chair, if I'm allowed to call a meeting or like somehow making motions, it would be great to have a clear understanding of how that would happen before people decide if they want to go to less frequent meetings also.
Yeah.
Which
Sounds
I
good.
don't think anyone's going to say no to, but you know.
That is up to the committee.
All right, so that is then put off until the November meeting, I think, and thanks for bringing that up. I think it is a kind of an important thing to get hashed out, even though it's a kind of annoying little bits of details. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is reports for information, and I'm going to go first with our systems change report, and then Amy about numbers for poultry. And I feel like I've gone through this systems change reporting a number of times, but I'm going to try and go quickly. I have a little presentation. Hopefully you guys can see it. So we actually wrapped up this project in July, and the report has just been kind of in limbo, getting looked at from various agencies. I believe it's going to be going online shortly. So this project actually started in 2018. The first phase was developing a project, and then the second was this 3-year phase that tested some actions to see how they influenced the system we were addressing. Vancouver Foundation is the primary funder, and they used to have a third stream to scale and kind of expand on the work, but that's not currently available. So first of all, what is systems change and what were we trying to do? The Vancouver Foundation puts it as a systems change project is one that aims to influence or change the systemic beliefs, behaviors, attitudes, resource flows, or policies that have contributed to the pressing issue. And here in the ACRD, our kind of pressing issue was that our ongoing efforts to support producers were being met by barriers which the region had little means or power to change. And other regions we knew were struggling with the same problem. So what we were trying to do was to increase the agency of communities in general to help ensure that local harvesters and producers had what they needed to succeed. And like Lisa had said, it's still very much an ongoing problem. So with regards to the chart, most of our activities were in the middle section, so building tools, relationships, knowledge and capacity, but we did see impacts at all of the 3 levels. If you look at the second level, some of the kind of 3 suggestions I'll share later today are mostly involving changes to practices, and then those practices can lead to policy changes. Helen, I see your hand up.
Is there any way you can make it bigger, like full screen? I just can't see it very well on my laptop. Please and thank you.
Let's see. If I go like that. Is that better? All right. So the second order outcomes can lead to policy changes. And then the third level outcomes are like societal transformation and cultural shifts. Those are things that happen more over time. This is a map of what we did, all the activities, the partners, and the desired outcomes. I'm not going to go into the weeds of all this, but it is in the report under appendix, so you can look and see what year by year what was going on. And just some overall findings, things that we know. Christopher mentioned this in his presentation as well. Basically, things in the food system are in crisis, and there's all kinds of food systems, like the global food system, the local food system. There's the elements of the systems like transportation and distribution networks. There's land-based food systems, there's marine-based food systems, and there's indigenous food systems. And really, there are big challenges with all of these. Production is the baseline of a healthy food system. You can't have a food system without production. And our levels of production, again, like Lisa said, are really critically at risk. The second point is that lots of people are working on this, and we all know this. We're like all here today trying to work together. But what happens often is that efforts are redundant. They're not always in line with what is wanted locally. So like say provincial people doing things, and I was like, oh, but that's not what we need here. And they're not always undertaken with really good information about what the producer needs are particularly. And then the last point, that we're all tapped up and we need to work together. Again, redundancy is just a huge problem. It wastes a lot of time and resources when multiple people are working on the same thing. We have vastly different views and opinions from each other, and everybody can see these days things are very polarized. And I think a basis of trust is really, really important. And that, you know, there is a need for us to let go of our own egos and our own like desires for power a little bit in order to work together well and try and learn from each other. Another thing that I just want to mention is that there's a difference, and I've really noticed this, the difference between the system itself, which is really quite rigid and hard to change, and the people working within the system, who typically are actually kind of open or willing to look at things, but then they're really limited in their abilities to try anything new. And that's both because of the organizational limitations they have, because they don't have time to try new things, or because they just don't know how. So those are really critical elements that have to be looked at. And that's my my winter cutworm kind of. I had another photo in here that I couldn't use because it referenced a swear word. So I was like, what else could I use that sort of shows some of this? I finally got around to like redoing some cement on my patio that's been like destroyed for years. So I finally got around to doing it, and I woke up in the morning and there's these little trails all over it. And therein like is the body of one of these cutworms. So we have a fossil record on my back patio, and it's just like, it was so ironic. That was the photo I chose, Amy. We had a conversation about this the other day. Okay, sorry, actually I have to go back. No, I don't, I'm going forward. Okay, so what are some 3 systemic shifts we can take? There's lots of specific ideas in the report, but 3 things that we can try and do. I think the first is really, really key. Producers know regulations are really a huge struggle for producers in actually getting stuff growing. So education is really important. If we can shift to putting the energy that goes into making regulations into the energy that goes into educating, that could make a big difference. So if government can get out of the way a little bit, but also offer avenues of support and expertise and guidance, that should be the first line of approach. And it's also something we can all do individually and as organizations as well. And I'll also say it's also the people that are making the rules that have to educate themselves about what the right rules might be. And I'm going to give an example. A local example is a recent requirement that meat sold at the farmer's market has to be sold from a mechanical cooler. And this is actually just personally driving me crazy. The enforcement of this new rule was started very suddenly in the middle of summer. So people are like scrambling, like, oh, where do I get a cooler? What kind of cooler? And I don't know, this is expensive. There's lots of problems. And mechanical coolers aren't necessarily even better insulators for meat than some of the really good quality coolers. Proper fridge units are expensive. They're hard to transport. They have to be stored somewhere. And not all the vendors even have a plug-in to use at their table. So how could this suddenly be brought down as this new rule that we have to follow? Why couldn't, for one, why couldn't they maybe educate themselves about what was realistic and what was needed, and like is it really needed even to keep the meat frozen in a cooler for 3 hours? And also maybe some information and education given to the vendors about what is really important and safety and why. So that's a little local example that, as you can see, I'm maybe a little excited about. The second one, turn meetings into celebrations. And so, you know, with this is really like Amy said, let's have a meeting that's a lunch, you know, let's bring people together and help to celebrate them. We do need producer involvement and community involvement, and people aren't necessarily showing up. People don't want more meetings, burnt out, tired, like, is this really of any use to me meeting here right now? Is this meeting a token to kind of show that they're listening, but not really? And is time better spent elsewhere? So turning meetings into celebrations, making meetings more productive, having fewer meetings is a really important way to shift how we do things together as a community. And also to make it celebratory, one last thing, focus on the action or actually actioning things so that we can go out and celebrate, hey, look what we did, rather than just studying things or talking about how or why, or like actually action some solutions so that we have lots of things to celebrate. And the last one, turning grants into gifts. And I'm curious, maybe, well, Tom's not here, but I'm curious how many people are applying for some of the government grants going out right now. I know locally, and I mean producers specifically, locally, there's not a lot of producers applying for the provincial grants. And there's just a lot of time to put into the application. There's time in reporting, and the timeframes are really long when they need solutions right now. I'm also curious about the cost of running the grant programs when they're very administrative heavy. So could that money be shifted into actually, say, gifting or other means of support? There's lots of alternatives. I actually like the ACRD grant and aid program. So that offers local grants to groups whose needs and capacities are typically well known in the community. There's very little reporting requirements and things like that. I think those could be expanded. And also you could like create separate streams. So if we want to support food and agriculture, we could have a stream of that specifically for producers as well, who currently aren't eligible, and also for food and agricultural organizations with a set pot of money for that specific purpose. Another good example of a gift is the farmers market. The coupons distributed for Family Farms Day. So the ACRD funded this, I think, again this year. People at the Fall Fair they had to answer a short survey, and then they got a coupon to spend at Family Farms Day. Now that money goes straight to the farmers' pockets, but it also gets people out on farm and trying these local foods. So that was a great program. And there's other gifts like water rebates. We all know producers need water. Like, you know, how much do you have to say to like, here's some support with getting water? And then there's gifts of just education and time, expertise, or space for meetings and things like that. So that's all, those are just the three very big picture things that we can all try and do. And so did we succeed in the project? If we were trying to get more influence to our region, I would say, if you may not see it, but compared to say 5 years ago, the ACRD is really well known, and we definitely have more agency than we did. We're known at the Ministry of Agriculture, and we're known in other communities across the province as well. Our producers have connections to the Ministry of Agriculture directly, like Tom is here now consistently. And we're getting emails consistently. We have organizations that have stronger government backing, direct government support, local government and higher levels, and more staff and resources to run projects. The Farmers Institute is better connected. One of the items we did was bring together all of the institutes across the province to talk about how, the needs of Farmers Institutes. And there's also a recognition now, which wasn't present before to the same level, that small scale, that marine, that Indigenous food systems, those are all really important parts in the agri-food system. And we have Amy, of course, which is like a gigantic. So the next question, and I'm hoping we can talk about this at our next meeting, is like now, so we have more agency, we have a stronger voice. What do we want to do with this? So what do we like? Where do we want to push with this? How do we want to use this newfound power? So I think we should talk about that at the next meeting, which will be a celebration, a little bit of fun. And also there's a piece about that is what are the challenges of having that kind of agency and power as well, including what might be a potentially higher cost and stretch to capacity and resources. Oh, so there's my little thank you page, but I'll skip that and we'll just go back. And if anyone has any questions or anything, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a question, Heather. What is the process for making others aware of this? I'm thinking, as I mentioned, the seaweed sector is trying to gear up. And so in a respect, it's trying to go from, a very beginning in its life to somewhere more impactful. There might be lessons in here for them, so can it be forwarded to them?
Yeah, so a couple of things with that overall. I believe the report is going to be getting out online, and then I haven't really been able to send it out to anybody. So I think the ACRD is going to take on sharing just some of the reports. This presentation will be in the minutes as well. But there's another part of that, and I think it's a good point, is like how, or I think what you're asking is like, how can they also create some of this newfound agency for themselves? And so what are some of the techniques that could be useful for that? And actually, I'd be happy to talk with you a bit about that more, and maybe I could look at, I'm just thinking about that. It's a really good question. When we reported back to the Vancouver Foundation too, that was a question they asked. So I want to look at that. But one of the things that I found is, like, when I started this project, the province, the Ministry of Agriculture, I'll just say, like, they couldn't stand me. They were like, what? Like, get out of my face. You're critiquing me. You're saying, like, there's these problems. We need more agency. There's all these things are going wrong. And I kept, like, having the critique, but also moving forward and like trying to be positive ways, and like, hey, come and talk to us, meet with us. This is a problem we're having. There's other people that are having these problems. And so it was actually a fairly respectful, like, back and forth. And we did develop a relationship over time, but they didn't necessarily like it. Like, who likes it when somebody wants to try and change an entire system, right? But so having the respect and the trust is really important. And I talk about that. I did another presentation. I actually developed a lot more respect for the province as well. And that's really important, is like, you have to understand that other people have challenges. And some of the things about what they were doing that was driving me crazy, I just got to understand why that was happening over time, and more specifically about the challenges they were dealing with. So it's really important to engage at all levels. And if that's something, you also need the targeted resources and funds. So if they want to, expand their own influence and like gain some agency in what they're doing, you have to put aside some funds to kind of push that along. I guess I'm not sure if that answers your question. But also I'm hoping to get like, I'm like a little poster or something as a cheat sheet to, just with even those 3 broad suggestions, and we'll share that out too. Does that help or answer your question at all?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
And Amy?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, as kind of an extension of Pat's question about what options exist for, say, the marine side of things, marine producers, if you will. I just had a question for Lisa. If the Farmers Institute is open to marine producers as well, can they join the Farmers Institute, or is it limited only terrestrial land?
No, it's all land, sea. Actually, Effingham Oyster has been a member as
Awesome.
well. So yeah, no, it's all, actually we were working kind of on another definition of what is a farmer or whatever, and it's very encompassing, and it's also about hunter-gatherers and all that as well. So, and I'd just like to say thank you, Heather, for your presentation and all your work that you've done over the years and stuff like that too. One thing for other people that are members on our group here, having a history of the ALR, Joan Sawicki had done, it's a 2-page compacted description about what the ALR was supposed to do with supporting local family farms and stuff like that. That was supposed to be the main priority, not just about saving the land. And so it gives you a really condensed showing of how it was supposed to work. And 2019, Lana Popham, it was during her tenure that farmers became not a person. So, bills 15, 52, those kind of things came down the pike. So that's kind of put a bad taste in a lot of producers' mouths, and the young farmers are having a hard time. If you can't have a home to live in on the property to help out, many hands make light work. A lot of people don't get paid to do the work. So people don't quite understand that. And Heather touched on the freezing of meat. We were one of those people that got a note saying that, hey, meat's a high-risk product. It now needs to be refrigerated. And I kind of have a hard time with that as well, because you invest in a heavy-duty cooler that's like $400, and the product is only there for a few hours. And now apparently we're supposed to have keep frozen labeled on the meat as well. I looked through the paperwork, and it's just another pain that you have to do. And I just find it ironic that, on the back of the tube of toothpaste, it says if you swallow it, you got to phone the Center for Health Risk or whatever. Like I don't get it. So it just seems that there's always something else that we have to deal with. And, our time, even though it may sound like it's a simple thing, it's just something else that we have to deal with. And it takes our time away from doing what we need to be doing, like fencing or killing a bunch of bloody caterpillars that are devastating our crops or whatever. So anyways, but I do thank everybody who pushes for local agriculture. And we have seen personally the increase in support for local product. Like we keep selling out, and we haven't even advertised lamb. We're sold out. I can't advertise because we got people waiting on the list. So it's, it's having the ability to produce more, but it's those rules and regulations and time. We're all running out of time to do all these things. Anyways, thanks, Heather.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Heather.
I think the the ALC regs that you referred to, actually that was going on when we were developing the project too. It's that, and when they came up with those regulations about housing, there was a huge uproar. Then they had to do a whole bunch of meetings across the province, or they chose to, which was good. And then they backed off on the rules. So really, that's the educate yourself, educate people. If there's a need, then make a rule. But anyways, that's an example of where a whole shift could have kind of made for way better relationships. Helen, go ahead.
I just want to say great. And I see your passion and I love it and I want it to be shared. And I find in the stuff that I do, trying to communicate with parents or other people is the hardest part. So you've got a great report. And I think kind of touching on what Pat said, like getting it out there, like, is the plan, you may have this plan, I just throwing it out there, you know, are you giving it to all these specific producers like you have on our list here? Are you sending it right to the government agency, to City Hall, to the school board, to them, back to the ministry, all the people you talk to, send them back a copy? Because the more they see the great work you did and that you approach them and send it to them again, like, it's so hard to communicate things and to keep it top of mind. But if you're able to just take all that time and make sure everyone gets a copy, and the ACRD post it on Facebook or on the newsletter that goes to every house, or the city can maybe put it in everything or post it on their website, or you have, like you said, a poster you mentioned, you put that up at the farmer's market or whatever. I just, all that great work and passion and trying to get other people to see it is one of the challenge things to do. I'm going to suggest that you keep working on, and thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah, the problem with the report is that it is long, but yeah, like a one-pager. And also we have been working over the years. I have an email list of everyone who's been involved. So it'll go out through there, is one of the key places. And then I just ask everybody here, just like everybody has to share it from there. But yeah, a short poster will be good. And I'll work with Amy and see how else the ACRD wants to proceed with it. It is their report. So I'm just working for them.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, yeah, it's we were waiting to present it because it was ACRD led project technically. Then we were waiting to present it to the committee as like the first presentation of the final report, because it's kind of a special thing. So the report itself is in the information items for the agenda, which now means that it's now public because our agendas are public. So I'm going to ask our website person to post it to our ACRD website, and then it'll have a link that can then be shared far and wide. And I'll work with Heather to make sure we're not missing anyone. If there's anything more we can do to get the word out there, then definitely.
Any other questions? I know we are like, this has been a very long meeting, it seems. And maybe I haven't done a very good job of keeping us going. We have 20 minutes. We have another report from Amy. And then we have our member reports. So I'm going to suggest we just get on with it, I suppose. But if somebody has a question.
Is that my direction to proceed with the next one?
Unless I see any hands. Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
Awesome. The next memo is hopefully short and sweet. It's on page 56 of the agenda if anyone wants to read it over. Basically, just a little bit of background. The Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District zoning bylaw is one of the oldest in the province. Enacted in 1973. We actually had a 50th kind of little birthday party here at the office when it passed 50, because kind of unheard of. The zoning bylaw does that. So it's bore recognition. But it's the update to the zoning bylaw has been long and varied, and I'm not going to get into it now. So basically, I had a request from one of the ADC members at the last meeting to please confirm if a resolution had been passed to amend the current zoning bylaw or the most current copy of the draft new zoning bylaw to allow higher poultry numbers in the electoral areas of Beaver Creek and Beaufort. So this memo is to address that request that was made by an ADC committee member. So it just goes through kind of the background, where the motion was made, and there's a link in there to the August 2023 draft of the zoning bylaw for the ACRD. If you haven't checked it out yet, does clear up a lot of things for agriculture and things like that, but it is not passed yet. So it's still a draft zoning bylaw. Bylaw number 15 is still from 1973, is still our current zoning bylaw that covers the whole of the ACRD. And so those changes to allow unlimited poultry numbers were requested to be put in the draft zoning bylaw, but they have not been enacted because the draft zoning bylaw was not passed by the board. So I just wanted to make that clarification to the ADC, but it is included in the most recent draft of the zoning bylaw that's waiting for it to be taken back up again once official community plan updates are completed for each electoral area. Then it's waiting to be picked back up, and it is in there. So it will be passed if the board adopts that draft of the zoning bylaw. Does that make sense, or does anyone have any questions about that? A lot of silence.
So there's they haven't changed the bylaws yet, but there's an updated draft bylaw that says that unlimited numbers of poultry can be allowed in Beaver Creek and Beaufort.
Yeah, the resolution asked for those changes to be made to the draft, so they were. So the draft now incorporates them. Yeah.
All right.
Question. So the zoning, are those lands that had farm use as a designation of that zoning?
I think it says all properties over 0.6 acres
have farm use.
Farm use is included as a secondary principal use, like a secondary use on all properties, basically residential and rural in the draft zoning bylaw. So it's there for everyone as a secondary use. So if you're gonna have chickens, if you're up, and so that would mean, what would that would mean if the draft goes through? The draft has not gone through. I have to clarify, make sure everyone understands. It hasn't gone through, but if the board adopts this draft, then the way that it reads now in Beaver Creek and Beaufort, if you are 0.6 acre or larger, you can have an unlimited amount of poultry, and that includes chickens, hens, roosters, peacocks, turkeys, you name it. As long as you're not thwarting quota and you're going to get your hands out for that, then it's all residential rural zone properties. But the draft zoning bylaw goes for all of the EAs, and agriculture use is a secondary use on all residential rural properties. So agriculture is included across the board. That was one of the things we made sure went in there to boost the ability to do agriculture.
Right. So, so just my understanding about if property or lands are zoned as a farm use, if local government wants to create bylaws that are more restrictive for farming, do they not have to then become regulated under section, I can't remember what it is now, 251 or 253 or something like that?
Of which act?
The local government farming bylaw. I think there's something to do with that. But there's something to do with the farm use. If land's designated for farm use, there's supposed to be rules, regulations. The Right to Farm Act is supposed to cover those properties that are zoned for farm use.
There's a difference between principal use and secondary permitted use. So in residentially zoned properties, the primary use, the principal use is for residential, but then you can have secondary permitted uses, and agriculture would fall under secondary, not primary. But under areas that are ALR or agriculture zoned, there's some that are rural, and it does fall into, here, I'm going to click on the draft and see if I can pull it. We don't have time, but it's important.
So the question is about, I think it's about farm use. And Lisa, you might be referring to municipalities, like, I'm not sure which ones they are, like Langley, or they have special designation to make.
They are because they made more restrictive regulations for farming.
Yeah.
So they are now under a new section or whatever, and they have to get permission from the ministry to create more restrictive rules.
They agreed to become like agriculture zoned. I understand. I remember what you're talking about. There's a special term for it. Abbotsford became that designation, and they have to go to the ministry more often.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ACRD is not that.
No, but there is some some local government rules and regulations with regards to creating farming bylaws within lands that are zoned and that. So if they're zoned for farm use, there's supposed to be the Farm Protection Act to allow people to have those protections. So it's that language thing and legislation. It's old legislation, it's old language. And that is something that I've been concerned about for a long time, because one word makes a big difference.
Yeah.
How zoning bylaws and things get changed. You know, things have been, you know, people say, oh, well, those rules and regulations, they've been there for a long time. Well, when did they get in there? Who agreed to more restrictive growing of your own food ideology and stuff like that? So that's where I'm kind of coming from, is whenever there's language change, it can have effect on legislation that has given farmers protection regardless of size. So that
The
would be
the only thing that I've heard the Right to Farm Act adhere to is ALR. Is it outside too?
No, you need to read. It's very specific. It's not just ALR lands. It's also lands that are zoned as for farm use.
Okay.
So
I'm just looking at the draft, and in the rural zones, which are generally the larger parcel sizes, the agriculture is I'm just looking at rural one. Permitted principal use is agriculture use. So the rural zones, agriculture use is principal use. Residential, because they're residentially zoned first, primary use is residential, and then but agriculture is added as a secondary use, so you can you're supported to do agriculture on the residential ones, which is not in our current zoning bylaw, like in any way, shape, and form.
I'm going to say we need to move on. I think this is an important discussion though, and I know this has been a concern for a long time. So I don't want to try and like, oh, we're going to solve this now, because we're not.
No.
So maybe there needs to be, and maybe can look at that term and it very specifically the language, and maybe we can put that on agenda, or somebody can do a little bit more knowledge so that we can come with some clear answers when it comes next. But I do appreciate you bringing that up, Lisa. Are there any other questions around that draft zoning bylaw?
Yeah, the memo was just for that one specific question about, are there unlimited, like, did that go through in the current zoning bylaw with the unlimited numbers allowed for poultry in Beaufort and Beaver Creek? Or is it in the draft? And it's in the draft. It didn't go through. We're still under bylaw number 15 from 50 years ago, 51 years ago.
All right. We're going to move on to member reports. And just to remind people, we only do have 11 minutes, and nobody likes for these meetings to run longer. It's better when they're shorter. But also just please remember that the focus of the meeting is on agriculture and food within the region, so that your reports and your updates should be relevant to that topic. And we'll just go in order on the agenda. So that's Amy first for the ACRD.
Oh man, are you getting tired of me talking? I swear. So just super quick, there is going to be a discussion. Aptly enough, there's going to be a discussion by EA directors at the EA directors meeting tomorrow. Oh, Pat Deacon has to go, and I think Helen's saying she has to go too. I don't know, she's muted. But there's going to be discussion on agricultural changes to the zoning bylaw at the EA directors meeting tomorrow. If you go in the same way that you access our agenda, our ACRD calendar of events, EA directors meeting is there on the 16th, which is tomorrow afternoon. It is live streamed, it is recorded. You can check in afterwards, but they are discussing that. So I do encourage, if you are interested in this kind of thing, to watch it or bookmark it for later, because like I said, it's contained online, so you can access it anytime.
Is that one that's also people can write in questions like they can at this meeting?
The same as for this meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So
that
same where
could
you
be-
send it to responses@acrd.bc.ca. You can ask your questions and it's referenced at the end. Yeah.
Well, that would be a good place to make a comment too, if anybody's listening and wants to bring anything to that discussion.
Yeah. Just with regards to, it was discussed before about the agricultural related resolutions that went to UBCM. There was the unfarmed land tax, school tax exemption, and the farm status limit increase. They did publish the results of the UBCM resolutions. Unfarmed land tax was endorsed. school tax exemption was endorsed, and farm status limit increase was referred to UBCM executive. And because I'm not an expert on these things, I spoke to my corporate services department and asked them kind of what happens now in case there was concern about these things being taken up without any input from anyone else. And this is kind of a green light for, you know, all sorts of sweeping changes to happen without anyone being talked to. And basically what happens now is like there's hundreds of resolutions. If you look at the book, it's just resolutions from UBCM, which is the Union of BC Municipalities, is so long. And so all of these will be sent to the province for response. If the province deems something important enough, they will strike a table to discuss further. This is not a green light for them to make sweeping changes to anything without any consultation. Generally though, because there are so many resolutions, you get a response back that's about this long in there. They publish a book of resolution responses and you get a response back. Generally, they refer to things the province is doing or planning to do with regards to that issue. If something is hot button enough, they will strike a table to start talking to people across the province and get more information and start to look into it. That generally happens like 1% or less, though, of the resolutions, just because there's so many. So I just wanted to bring that forward. Also, if there's ever a resolution that the ADC would like to forward on agriculturally related, you can send it through the board as a committee of the board to request that they send it to UBCM. So I just wanted to put that out there as well, in case you didn't know that that was an option because you are a committee. So I am booked into agricultural liaison training at Coombs for emergency operations centers on November 19th, which is the date of the next meeting. And so decision has to be made to shift the next meeting date. I won't be available. There was discussion about putting it on November 12th, which basically keeps it on the Tuesday in the same time slot, but bumps it a week prior. And it's only 15th today, so it is a month in between. So it does give you that month kind of spread. I did check the ACRD boardroom because it is supposed to be in person and it is available either with lunch in the middle and having the meeting before or the meeting afterwards. It's the committee's decision. If you'd rather have lunch first and then have the meeting in the afternoon, that's certainly an option.
Great. That's your updates. Fantastic. Lisa.
Just a quick question. Do we know how our regional district voted for these UBCM?
I asked that if that was tracked, and it's not tracked. It's basically a sea of electoral area representatives and local government elected officials, and they don't track who votes which way. And also the other thing to keep in mind is that the whole time the resolution voting is going on, there's also a lot of meetings with ministers and other provincial departments and stuff that are going on concurrently. So generally what they do is if there's a section of electoral area directors from the ACRD that attend, if something's super important, they'll try and make their ministerial meetings go around it. But the other thing to ask is to make sure is that everyone attends. So the invitation to attend UBCM and vote on these things is extended to all members of the ACRD board, the electoral area directors, all that sort of thing. Whether or not they attend, though, is their choice. So some attend and some don't. But if it's considered important to their constituents, then the request can be made from, I mean, that's a conversation that can happen between any constituents and their elected official, because that's their relationship.
So would the board have given direction to whoever the representative was to vote a certain way? Do we have that as a record?
No, the board doesn't give direction. The elected official will attend, and they would vote based on what they vote on or what they feel their constituents want. The board won't generally vote in a block. They won't, I don't know, I don't want to say collude, so that's an ugly word.
I have an idea around this, and Amy, I was going to ask you actually, because we have made recommendations for resolutions in the past, but what tends to happen is that we actually miss deadlines. We don't know, oh, this is the deadline. So if you would be able to bring to the ADC when the deadline is coming up so that the ADC can discuss it and get it in on time. And then the other piece is that, would it be possible for the ADC to be advised as to what all the resolutions will be and in the advance of the UBCM? And then the ADC could then choose if they wanted to make a motion to send information to the board not directing them what to vote, but giving them some information and letting them know what the ACRD would like that vote to be. And then they would have some input from the committee when voting on agricultural
Related
would
things.
that be possible?
Yeah, as far as I know, all of that is possible. Lisa, is that something that you would work better
Yeah,
for next
well,
year?
Oh, well, I would like to know somebody's voted or not voted on our behalf. We did bring it. We said it was important to us. We brought it forward a long time ago before UBCM even happened. So I think I would like to see some accountability. Who's voting for what? I think that's important. Thanks.
So just for the record, that resolution was, or that motion was sent forward to the board to say, remember the ADC made a motion to say these are important, please don't support them. But as to the outcome, it's a huge sea of elected officials and they all vote on everything, and the voting is not tracked. It's strict for and against, majority rules for endorsed versus non-endorsed.
That sounds like a resolution that we could bring to the UBCM,
They track
that,
it.
that they record votes. Anyways, I have no idea because I don't know much about the processes there.
But I've noted that down, Madam Chair. So bring to the ADC the deadline for UBCM resolution submission in enough time so that if the ADC wants to bring one forward through the board, they can. And distribute the book of resolutions when it's published to the ADC. And if so that if they want to, they can send info through the board to before it happens. Is that correct? I've got it noted.
And could even ask the board to let us know what they voted. I suppose that could be part of our request next time, which of course, again, would be up to them. But anyways, we're going to move on. 2 minutes. How can this be? City of Port Alberni. Pat has left. Helen, go ahead, because I know you have to leave.
I just have a question. Amy brought up changing the date. So have we confirmed that we're changing to the 12th?
Yes. I am, as the chair, am able to call a meeting at any time. So the meeting will be on the 12th. It will be a lunch meeting. So the particular time will be determined and mailed out to you with the minutes, or
Okay.
we'll decide on that.
Perfect. Am I up for report?
Yes.
Okay, I'll be very quick. I minimize it to what's, I think, the Board of Education has sent an advocacy letter in support of the National Food Program to our MLA, Gord Johns. So that has gone off to him to support a national food program. Lots has happened. You can always go to the public meeting and see all the stuff. The other thing I wanted to mention, the 5-year capital plan and our minor capital plan we passed, and it includes updates to kitchens and stuff, which is part of food giving to kids and stuff. So that would be important for you guys, I think. And policies. I think there are some more policies up there that I think are important to get public input. So please take an opportunity to read the policy and the admin procedure, please and thank you. And I'll just keep it at that. Thank you so much.
Can you send a link or type it in as to where that could be found?
It's on the SD70 website. I'll do my best.
Okay.
Put it in the chat. I'll do my best. I know Kristen's probably much better at that, but I'll try. Thank you.
Well, and Kirsten, you're here and kind of working in the school as well. So if you have anything to add to that, then go ahead.
I'll be very brief. I really liked that report. Thank you. Adding to what Helen said, we're going to be moving forward. We're making some changes with our food program at a pretty significant level, and looking to collaborate with local suppliers. And I'll read through that report. I just am happy to be included in the conversation and kind of work at things from kind of a broader scope and see what's going on in the ACRD. And please feel free to contact me with questions. There's lots of changes we're feeding people, so that's great. And like Helen said, we're working at making some kitchen upgrades. There's a pretty significant one happening at EJ Dunn right now. And the next will be Wickaninnish. And we put forward a grant request for a cold storage upgrade district-wide, as well as an upgrade to the Bamfield Community School kitchen. And probably, for a refrigerated vehicle for food delivery. So many things going on. I'm happy to make a more detailed report when we have more time. And I'm happy to, like I said, be asked questions. So that's everything.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I'd be really interested in hearing more, and maybe even we can talk about getting you to do a little presentation about what you're working on. So
Yeah, just keep me in the loop. I'm more than happy to participate.
that'd be great. Who's next? Lisa. Sorry, I feel terrible. I hate like squishing everybody in. I don't know. There's only 7 of us
worries.
now. So.
No worries. We've had lots to talk about. AGM is coming up on the 14th at 6:30. We've had a few new members as well. Some people that are interested in maybe organizing some workshops and stuff. So hopefully that will come to pass. Directors have been busy still working on some housekeeping on structure within the Farmers Institute as well. So anyways, that's my report. Thanks.
Thanks. You said 6:30?
Yeah,
okay.
6:30.
Anna.
Yeah.
You're not least, but you're last for today.
That's quite all right. Oh, I'm in my kitchen. I've dealt with a lot of pears while we've been talking, putting them through the squisher. Well, my reports and the thing beyond that, I would say pretty much the gleaning program is now done. I've got the truck. I have a truck here that's loaded with the stuff, and I'm responding to emails, but we picked 9,680 pounds of fruit. Emphasize so much why we need cold storage, why there needs to be post-harvest processing, because it's really hard to get rid of that much fruit to our local food organizations. We're doing a fundraiser right now. If anybody wants juice, I took a load down to Pressing Matters. They're the 5-liter boxes of pasteurized apple juice with a shelf life of a year. Yeah, we have our AGM coming up as well, and that's tacked on to a fun square dance, so it should be a good time. I'm looking forward to it, and AGM is going to be brief. That's my goal. So going to be working on reports this month to get out to our membership, so they'll just hopefully be approved and priority setting, and that's it. Good to go. Final thing, I guess, would be the grant that was awarded to the school district. Well, the Farm to School won the TD Friends of the Environment. The first meeting will be next week with EJ Dunn. Yeah, in terms of starting the education process, and we heard ADSS Garden is going to be a no-go because of renos. So we chose to deal with the Bamfield School, and hopefully they're on board. And then we've got Bamfield, EJ Dunn, and 8th Avenue Learning Center. So excited to get that process going. So yeah, because the Food Security Society is responsible for the educational component. And that will be it from me.
Great. It's lovely to see both of you mentioning Bamfield and the garden and schools out there. I know that's been a priority of the ACRD as well. So yay. Great. There's actually producer reports. Anyone have a producer report?
I guess I can say that, like I said earlier, lamb is just disappearing like crazy. We won't be advertising. It looks like we're probably sold out. We had another restaurant show up yesterday and take some lamb, and he would like more than what we have. So anyways, which is all good. People have been very supportive. I've got wait lists. It's just getting them to grow. We still have a bottleneck with the cut wrap thing. That's still a bit of a problem. So, but anyways, local support is great. The feedback is great. It's been a great thing to see. Thanks.
I concur. It's way easier to sell things than it has been in the past. And there's also more dollars out there for it, not from just people in generally who are pretty strapped, but like the coupon programs and the Family Farms Day tickets and things like that. So really good. It's a good place, at least if there's a market. Hopefully more producers can step in and or up their production if they can. Keep trying. Okay, that's reports. And moving on, the last piece is question period. So is there any questions or comments from the public?
No,
Kristen?
there's nothing on Zoom and nothing in the responses email.
Okay, thank you so much. So the next meeting date is Tuesday, November 12th. It will be in person in the boardroom. There will be lunch and celebration, good things to eat, and fun, friendly people. And we are going to decide on a time, or do we want to pick a time? Just Amy, thinking,
If you
let's
want
just
to
pick a
make it for
time.
noon, if you want to make it for noon, everyone
Okay.
show up for noon. The food will be there, and then we can proceed from there with the meeting.
All right, noon on Tuesday, November 12th. And the meetings are open to the public, correct?
I believe so.
Yes, they are. And so I suppose if you're a public and you are going to come and join us, it might be a good idea to maybe have a conversation with Amy and see if you can also have a plate of food there for you. But I don't know. I don't want to put my foot in that one. But just to say, the meetings are open to the public. So for sure, public can come to that meeting as well. And that's all for today.
That's all.
I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 11:37. I'm very sorry that we are over time, but I really appreciate everybody coming and sharing, working as a community, and eating good food together, hopefully for a long time.
That was a jam-packed agenda. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your hard work keeping it going. You did an exemplary job.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, everybody.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks
We will
everyone.
see you again
Thanks,
next
everybody.
month.